Joining us, the man of the moment, courtesy of Zebra. Great to see you. Good to see you. Is Sean Payton here on the Rich Eisen Show. The new Denver Broncos head coach. I am appreciative that you just gently shook my hand because we're here at a Super Bowl, and I will never forget, after you won the Super Bowl with the New Orleans Saints, you come by on the set of the NFL Network.
I'll remember it forever.
It was unbelievable. You were so, fired up because you're a Super Bowl winning head coach now, and you slapped our hands. You slapped my hand so hard, I did lose feeling like I was Brock Purdy.
It's coming back.
It's just now. You were so. I truly, for that entire interview, I'm like, man, my hand is still tingling. Boom, went straight down. I just remember that. Man.
Well, when at that event, and I'm sure it varies per stadium, but you kind of do a media segment like you would after the game, and then you get in these golf carts and they take you places.
Yes.
And so, a lot of times coaches can be like crotchety about, I don't want to do another interview here. But so when you win the Super Bowl, it's like, who else wants to talk? Would you like to sit down here? Because I'd like to keep talking about this. And so we go way back. Listen, Rich is part of the, if there was a combine rat pack, he's one of the founding members. And so we see, what we see here with him running. I remember him before that was even he was part of the combine. And so when I was asked today, someone feels like there should no longer be a combine. I'm like, it's ludicrous. The initial beginning of the combine was to combine medical information.
Yes.
So. Prior to the combine, there were 3 or 4 groups, and these colleges would have, imagine all the people coming to the colleges to poke and prod and find out the health of everyone. And then someone said, let's combine the information. Let's meet somewhere. And then someone said, hey, while they're here, let's run a 40.
Might as well.
While they're here. And then, let's do a 3-cone drill. And so, but the initial intent and purpose of the combine was to combine medical information, and hopefully the powers to be are smart enough to keep that in place. It's more efficient for the players, and honestly, I think the players gain from that. I mean, the fastest 40s are run at the combine. It's a fast track.
It is.
I mean, it's a
except for when I run it.
Well,
then the track is not as fast.
But
John.
no, but the argument would be if we went back to your alma mater and ran a 40.
Yes.
I think you'd prefer being at the combine.
Maybe so.
So it's all relative, right?
It is. And then we just always had a great time after the night was over. I remember a mechanical bull at 2 a.m. and things like that back in the day, man.
That was like Vegas with Sinatra, Martin.
Yes.
There was a group of us, and so
it was so fun,
young and working hard at what we're doing, and now look, a lot's changed. Like this set, the carpet here, everything.
We got the carpet, we got it all working, and I'm thrilled that you're stopping by. Sean Payton, the new Denver Broncos head coach, courtesy of Zebra Technologies, and we'll get to that in a second. It was great seeing you last night at the Wheels Up dinner as well. That was
right?
a great spot, just a great spot, and I couldn't help but notice the man to your left was your quarterback, Russell Wilson.
I get invited. I think Russell was one of the hosts.
Yes.
They've got a couple hosts, and it wasn't a big party. It was more of a dinner.
Yeah.
I would say it was a dinner.
Sit-down. It was a sit-down, yeah.
And so I've met Russ before. I coached him in the Pro Bowl, and I'm anxious to get over and see him. I haven't seen him since I've become the head coach, and he's sitting with his wife, Sierra, but across from me is Joe Montana and his wife, Jennifer. And so I know Russ was wanting to talk a lot about where we're going, and I kept asking Joe, so on 2 Jet Flanker Drive, how did you read this play? And because when I cut my teeth as a young coach in 97 and 98, it was under Ray Rhodes and John Gruden. They had come from that Bill Walsh, Mike Holmgren. They were in that tree. And so all the cut-ups that I had a chance to be a part of or watch, a lot of them were Joe Montana. And I still have these tapes. And these are when you pull these out, this is like the Bible. You open it up, and this is the way it was taught. And here he is, and I've met him before, but never had this chance to like.
Yeah, he's
and
across
so
the table. He was literally across the table.
Russ
from you.
keeps nudging me, and I'm like, hold on. So, but it was a great event.
So you got a chance to just chat with Russ and just be there.
It was good.
Just hang and have a nice like normal hangout. It was pretty
absolutely.
cool. So the whole question was like, would you take the job based on what we saw from Russ last year, and why would you do that based on what we saw from Russ last year? So what do you say about what you saw from Russ last year?
I think this. At the very beginning of this process, the thing that was unique is when you're working for Fox and you're on a studio show, and you become possibly a candidate for these jobs, like they have to ask that question. And so we went in a direction where we just openly talked about it, whether it was Schrager or Glazier, and I said, look, this is where it's at. But the important triangle that I felt from experience was ownership and front office GM. And I had that, I had experienced that in a really, really positive way in New Orleans with the Benson family, Mr. Benson, the late Mr. Benson, Gail Benson, and then Mickey Loomis, who's a close friend to this day. Like that triangle to me is and was number one in this decision of if there was a right job. And then secondly, what's the culture and fan base like to the city? You want to go somewhere where it's important, and it was important in New Orleans for a lot of reasons, maybe even different than at the time, but man, it's important in Denver. And then lastly are the players, and so there's no perfect, but let's talk about it. It's a team that went 5-12. That's why there's an open job. Generally speaking, when a team underachieves or doesn't play as well as everyone expects, there's a lot of people with dirt on their hands, and we gravitate to the quarterback and the head coach.
Sure.
I know this. I know he works his butt off. I know he's going to train hard. All the other things that got out of I'm not interested in where they were. So there's going to be a car in the facility with no rear view mirrors on it, and it's a little just symbolic of where we're going. I believe in the system we have, but I also believe that we got to look closely at what's best for this team individually, and it starts with what does the quarterback do well? And two things that help quarterbacks are good defense and good running game. I think they played pretty good defense last year.
Yes, they did.
They struggled running the football.
And that was part of the issue, was that the defense was balling out and the offense wasn't holding its.
It's an issue. I was in New York when Foxy and Michael Strahan and Jesse Armstead, those guys were fantastic and the offenses were awful. And we finally flipped that script and we go to a Super Bowl.
Right.
So I think this, look, Russell lives like 6 miles from Drew Brees in San Diego in the offseason. That's where his home is. And so this whole month, Drew is calling me saying, hey, when are you making a decision? This guy's wearing me out. And
Russ was wearing him out?
Well, Russ and Drew,
Russ was wearing Drew out. Okay, saying about you.
What's going on? And so I told Drew on the phone, I said, look, I'm going to make you assistant head coach of Del Mar Relations. You just handle that. But I think here's the thing. The challenge is the fun part. Mm-hmm. And I heard you talk about this. Like, the challenge is the fun part. And when we signed Drew in 2006, everyone says, well, Miami failed the physical. No, they didn't fail the physical. They passed him on the physical, but they didn't offer. They were a little bit more leery with their offer, and we were much stronger with our offer because we had to. But the fun part is the challenge. And so I'm looking forward to working with him.
Is it as simple as, Drew was deadly accurate and Drew was also, I'll say it, vertically challenged, and that you have, and that
they're
Russ
different players.
Okay, and that Russ can just plug right into your.
They're different players. No, I think this is tweaked. The offense changes a little, and then we also have to be, ready to adjust as we see it ourselves. Uh-huh. But look, what we did with Kerry Collins in New York was different than what we did with Quincy Carter in Dallas or Vinny Testaverde. And then when we signed Drew, quickly we changed kind of we had a coach on our staff that was with Brees in San Diego. That was a coincidence. And so we began using terms that he knew because it didn't matter to us. We were new. It's a little bit like a business startup. That's the fun part.
It is. And and then the huge narrative of last week, Sean Payton was the personal coach of Russ. You're not going to let him. You're not going to let him have that.
I was asked the question about. We did a press conference, and then we had this. We called
the scrum. The scrum on the side.
They called it a gaggle.
Yes. You had a gaggle. You did have a gaggle.
We're not calling it a gaggle anymore. And I love
your show now.
I love Patrick Smythe. Patrick's fantastic.
Patrick is great.
He's a stud.
He's been there for a long time.
So we had this gaggle, which means more questions. And so we're talking, and somebody just said, hey, Russell's had a coach in the building, helping him. Your thoughts on that? And I was honest. I said, I'm unfamiliar with that. I'm unfamiliar with what that looks like, which means I'm probably not going to do that. In fact, we're not going to do that. But that, like he said last night to me, he said, I want to be coached hard. All these players want to be coached hard. They really do. And so, and creating that environment that's best for the team, and the accountability that's best for the team. There were a lot of things they didn't do well last year, and that falls on a lot of different people, and a lot of different people are gone.
So you didn't, in between the peas and prosciuttos and the Rayo's meatballs, didn't say to you, hey, I want my coach back?
No. There was no. I think it was pretty clear, so I don't think there was any. I don't feel.
Yes, it was. It was clear.
But listen, he was fantastic, and it was good.
Okay, Sean Payton here, courtesy of Zebra Technologies. Walk me through the latest. I love all these technologies and where it's going to lead the NFL here.
We all got exposed to Zebra 9 years ago when they partnered with the NFL.
Yeah.
And I think it's always important to explain to people, Zebra is the barcode. So when you're at the store and you swipe something and you see the barcode, that's what they do long before they thought about putting chips in shoulder pads. So if you're at Best Buy or Walmart and you swipe something, that's a Zebra barcode that tells you what it is and how much it costs. All right. It's information tracking, and so we put the little chips in the shoulder pads, and we get the players' miles per hour, and then we call it next gen stats.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I actually know the lady that actually invented that term. All right, but that's a Zebra term. Next gen stats tell me this player was traveling 21 miles an hour. So it provided a studio entertainment value, right? And then it also provided us at the club level of putting these in their pads and just watching practice volumes, miles per hour, how far they traveled, because we began to get better at practicing more efficiently, but also to avoid soft tissue injuries. My first exposure was just trying to reduce hamstrings and muscle cramping, and looking down at the receivers. In a practice training camp session, the average distance for a 2.5-hour practice was 6 to 6.5 miles for a wide receiver. That's when they enter the field till they leave. Brandon Cooks was at 8. And so why was he at 8? Let's pay attention to it, because shame on us if Brandon has an injury. And so you take a broad-based approach and say, we're going to cut back on practice. Well, what does that really mean? This just gave me a way to measure it.
Fantastic.
But now the chips are in the balls.
You bet it is.
All right.
Where are we going with this, Sean?
So
where we're going with this.
I'm going to go back before I go forward. We all saw the Chain Gang episode in Philly.
How many chains broke in the playoffs?
Now listen, it gets better. The best part of the Chain Gang experience is when they brought the second set in. Yeah. And we examined it in our own eyes, and every one of us said, it's tangled, this is going to take 30 seconds. We've all had a hose that had a knot.
Yes.
We saw this thing sat tilted at the basement of this stadium, unused for 8 years.
Yes.
And we knew it was tangled. And I thought, are they going to go to commercial here? Like, you can't make this up.
No. So what are we just going to start?
So let me just start with this. They do have, we can still have a 10-yard measuring stick. They make untangled chains like our hoses now. You know, the ones you just pull out. They're they can never get tangled.
Never.
Exactly. I want that.
Never.
All right.
Are we gonna start using a football to GPS?
The chips in the football.
Everything?
Let's just start with the idea that it crosses the goal line.
Yes, sir.
And when it touches the goal line, the goalposts light up.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right, because in the NBA, when it turns 0-0-0, do you see the backboard?
Yes, of course you know.
So what does the official look at? He just looks at the hand and the ball.
Yeah.
And if it's here, it's good. If it's here, it's not.
Correct.
So wouldn't we like to be able to see that light and then look at the knee?
Yes, we would.
Yes.
And so,
Yes,
and
we
then
would.
the other thing that's crazy, when I punt this ball and it goes out of bounds in the air, the method at which we measure that.
It's the eye test.
No.
You know, we always think of the yodeler on The Price is Right who keeps going up and they yodel, and it's the ref it's like the yodeler going
This
up.
guy back here just starts walking
He just-
fast,
it's just-
and I look, and I look, and I look, and then I'm like, and have we ever questioned that?
Never.
You know why? Because we go to break all the time after a punt. We go to break. No one
love this.
says we just got screwed on that.
That's right.
They went out of the bounds 20 yards deep in the air over a plane, and they just said that looks about right, 38 yards.
So when are we going to get to that? Because it's not just that. Obviously, Zebra might have the technology.
The first thing we have to do is draw attention to it, and so that's what we're doing right now.
Well, you also got to get in the competition committee
on
room and
that.
start.
I was
I
on the
know that.
committee.
You got to get back in there and start knocking some heads together.
We got some other challenges right now, but now let's be the devil's advocate here for a second, because I just worked TV. You've done TV.
Yes, sir.
All right. There's something cool about the chain gang coming out and extending it, and
It's close.
A little simple.
don't ever lose track of this. All the things
suspense.
we're doing are TV driven.
Yeah, right.
All right. There's a reason this challenge flag that I'm carrying that has 2 ounces of sand and a rubber band wrapped around it that I launch onto the field when I disagree, when I could easily just beep a button.
Yeah.
But we want to see this flag, and then we throw it differently. Like we throw it in disgust right at the feet, like,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So it's great drama. And so we're not changing that, are we? In other words, there's a happy balance here.
That's fine.
But I do think we can get to a few things, because ultimately we want to help the officials. That's all.
And Zebra just announced an extension of their partnership with the NFL through at least 2025, which is great. And I always love having you on the show, man. I always appreciate you stopping
No, I
by.
appreciate you. I love our friendship.
Right back at you.
Yeah.
And so your prediction for Super Bowl 57
So
is?
I said this on air last week. I'm going to be asked it again tomorrow or Sunday. I felt the winner of the NFC Championship game was going to win this game, and I still feel that way. I feel Philadelphia is going to win this game. There's one little thing that's a little bugaboo that I think we got to pay attention to. I think Kansas City's much further along in the kicking game. I watched that return last week that led to the touchdown. I mean, what's his name? Scott, or who was it that?
Sky Moore.
Sky Moore had the punt return.
Yes.
Look, they got a veteran special teams coach and top,
Yeah.
And so if you that's the one area that if we see, and this comes up every 10 years, you had Green Bay with Desmond Howard returning a kickoff versus if there's some explosives in the kicking game favoring Kansas City, then that trumps this discussion. I think Philadelphia runs the ball more effectively. I think they currently have been playing better defense. And so I think it's Philadelphia's game. That's why I'm picking to win. And look, here's the other thing. So I had made that prediction before getting hired with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And so once you're in the division with a team, like my son said this to me when he was younger and we were watching the Falcons in the playoffs, and I said, Connor, who you liking in this game? And he said, Dad, we can't root for the Dirty Birds, so we can't root for the Chiefs, can we?
Now you're a Bronco.
Yeah,
exactly.
So we're rooting for Philly.
I got you. And then, of course, in terms of special teams, you never know when some crazy ass.
Just remember this.
Yeah.
That little discussion we just had.
Okay.
Kicking game related.
I was about to say, you never know when some crazy ass coach is going to start the second half of a Super Bowl with an onside kick either. You never
know that. And there's going to be a scrum.
Great to see you, Sean Payton.
Great seeing you guys.
You got it. That's Sean
Appreciate
Payton,
you
the new
guys.
head coach of the Denver Broncos.